Hi, I'm Jesse Miller-Gordon here again with Mary Jane. Can I ask, who am I speaking with?
I'm Ethan Nadelmann. I'm the founder and executive director of the Drug Policy Alliance.
What can you tell us about it?
Well, it's the first time Drug Policy Alliance has ever done something, I think, with industry. We normally keep a certain arm's length from industry. We're in this to end the drug war, and legalizing marijuana is part of ending the harms of the drug war. So we're not in it for the money, that's not our thing, but we saw an opportunity to kind of help legitimize not just the industry, but our cause in the center of political attention in America for this week.
Now that, as you said earlier in your introduction, and then other politicians have said while I've been interviewing, they've been describing how in the next 5 years, legalization is cresting. Do you see that now is an essential time to reach out to the commercial wing of marijuana just to make sure that the transition to a fully legal end to prohibition is, I don't know, maybe not taken over by something like a Monsanto or like the interests of the tobacco industry and kind of other bigger industries outside of the movement that have taken an active interest over the last decade or two but never done anything about it until now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm of a couple minds about that. I think that given that America is the single most dynamic capitalist society in the world, and given that once you start to make things legal, inevitably elements of crony capitalism set in, as we're already seeing in the early stages of marijuana legalization, I'm somewhat pessimistic about our ability to shape the future of this industry. That said, I think it's pivotally important that we try to do everything we possibly can. And that's why I'm incredibly proud of the California initiative. Because Drug Policy Alliance had a major hand. I mean, we have a hand in drafting most of the initiatives, but in California, we really played a key role. And that California initiative is going to be a new gold standard. It's one that says that we got to think about giving back money to the communities that have been harmed by the drug war.
Can you outline some of the most important aspects of the legislation?
Sure. Well, look, I mean, from the bigger purposes, it's got fantastic public health protections. It's got a multi-dimensional licensing scheme so both big players and small players can get in. It's got all sorts of really good, smart things there. There's a reason why the California Medical Association has endorsed it. It's going to be a very effective one in a dynamic state. But from the perspective of sentencing reform and social justice, the fact that it's going to allocate up to $50 million a year specifically to address the harms done in communities that have been afflicted by the drug war. The fact that it says that people cannot be excluded from getting a license just because they once had a drug felony conviction. I mean, it can be used against them, but it can't be the sole basis. The fact that it's going to allow people to get their records for marijuana funds expunged, right? So there's all of these really smart, thoughtful sentencing reforms and equitable justice things in there that we really hope can provide a model for the future. The majority of the tax revenue is going to be directed for young people. And that means it's going to disproportionately go to helping young people who need state assistance in trying to help lead better lives.
Touching back on expunging marijuana records, it's no secret that a lot of these former felons end up selling marijuana to help subsidize their family income. And it's not fun, it's not a joke, it's part of their lives. And these people are losing that gray market job now. Do you see programs at work that might help that along?
I mean, there's a couple of answers. One of the things about the California initiative is that what we did is that the bigger you are, the higher the licensing fee. And that means that if you're a relatively small grower, the licensing fees will be less than it will be for others. Other states have a very high barrier to entry, and we wanted to get around that issue because California already has, tens or hundreds of thousands of people growing marijuana commercially, whether it's illegally, legally, or in the gray area of the law. The second part of this is that by saying that people who have some kind of criminal conviction should not be denied access to the legal market, I think that's the second part that's very important. The third thing is going to be, can we get, either by passing local legislation or state legislation, do things that provide incentives for the emerging industry to hire and train people coming out of communities who have not had a fair shot in the legal economy in America, or to give people a fair shot, by giving them some of the education they need to get into this. So we're trying to do it with some consciousness. I don't know how successful we'll be in the future. We're playing a big role in California right now, but I do think it's important that we do our best to try to make this happen.
That's fantastic. I think that'll also move to help protect smaller growers, because a dirty secret, especially in Northern California where I'm from, is kind of the last vestiges of violence in marijuana is actually on the farming, growing level now.
Right.
That's where the biggest problems are. Is there going to be stuff to combat that?
The only way to combat that eventually is really going to be to move the market from the illegal to the legal.
Certainly.
I mean, we're really in a process, in the way when we repealed alcohol prohibition in 1933, the black market in booze stayed around for a long time, but after 10, 15, 20 years, it sort of faded away to just tiny pockets, right? And I think with marijuana legalization, we don't have a national amendment to repeal marijuana prohibition. So it's going to be an even slower process. But over time, the consumer market's going to shift to the legal side, and basically the violence is going to disappear. The problems with, growers and state forests and national forests, that's essentially going to disappear. The problem with the gangsters, both north and south of the border with Mexico, that's eventually going to disappear in terms of the marijuana industry. So that's very important. There's also an element, by the way, of the initiative that provides tax revenue, is dedicated specifically to doing environmental cleanup for those marijuana grows that landed up making a mess.
After founding this amazing organization, and the DPA has now moved into like 2 separate wings, how do you feel?
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, on the one hand, it's always good when people slap me on the back and say, wow, you've come a long way.
Right.
Because in fact we have. I mean, I got going on this, based in the late 1980s. And I created the organization about 20 years ago, right before we did the legalization of medical marijuana in California. So we've come an amazingly long way on marijuana. I think we've more or less passed the tipping point. But then you look at our other issues, like trying to reduce the prison population.
Sure.
I think we've turned a corner on that as well, but it's going to be a lot longer. And
There's a conversation on treatment now where there wasn't one.
there is, and about reducing the penalties and the need to reduce the prison population. And then also when it comes to treating drug use and addiction, not just marijuana, but other drugs, primarily as a health issue, not a criminal issue,
Certainly.
I think we're making progress there as well. So I'll tell you, overall we're making tremendous progress. I mean, we are sort of the new movement, the new political movement for freedom and justice on the block, and we're really coming of age. On the other hand, we're entering the second stage of a political movement, and that inevitably means that headaches and the challenges of a growing, blossoming movement become ever greater.
Well, I wish you all the best luck in the future. Thank you so
Jesse.
much.
Thank you, Jesse.
I really appreciate it.